Good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome to Just Logic. This is episode 15. I'm your host, James Lomax, but I'm sure you knew that already. Another special one, man. I'm really excited to have this brother on, real close brother of mine. And I'm very excited about the topic that we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into it, I do want to introduce JayBrian. JayBrian is a dear friend of mine. A lot of our listeners already know, who you are, or at least have an idea of who you are. And a lot of them know that you're a sports head as well. So, and that's the main reason why I wanted to bring you on because number one, your involvement in sports is very interesting. And then number two, I think it would just be cool to hear your perspective about what's going on a few things. We definitely have some focus topics, but I'm real excited about that. So what's going on, bro? You doing all right?
What's poppin', my brother? Man, I'm excited to be on the show, man. I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you, man. It's dope to see you thriving in the area that I particularly think that you're great in, outstanding even. So yeah, man, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a no-brainer, especially when it comes to this topic that we're talking about. So before we dive into it, though, I do want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Hey, I'm flawed, my brother. I'm a flawed man.
As we all are.
We all need Christ, my brother.
We all
but yeah, I do want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, who you are, and kind of like your involvement in sports and how you got started in youth basketball, which is going to be the main focus of our topic today.
Yeah, man. Well, east side of Detroit, born and raised on the playgrounds where I spent the most of my days.
You are Will Smith.
Shut up. No, man, Jay, as you said, I am into sports a little bit heavier than I thought I ever would be at this point in my life. Excuse me. But I say, man, grew up in Detroit, born and raised there my whole life, moved here to Texas quite some time ago. And man, it's not really much to me, man. I love the Lord. I serve in my local church. I'm a father. I'm a husband. And that's really it, man. I don't think it's too much to add to that. That's all encompassing. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different layers to it. But just to keep it simple, that's what I do. And I found myself in a chapter now that's a little interesting. Something that was supposed to be temporary or a helping hand has now become something of a responsibility and enjoyable, which is kind of coaching youth basketball. So
that's dope.
I guess that's part of the reason why you have me on this Just Logic podcast.
Just Logic, that's right. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So you had mentioned that it sounds like you initially started off as kind of like hey man, I like a brother helping out another brother, and it ended up turning into a passion. So can you talk a little bit more about that? How your exact involvement?
It's actually a little bit more in depth and serious than that. Just to for full disclosure context, my oldest son was playing on the team for a few years, and unfortunately, 2 summers ago, it's been 2 summers now. One of his teammates committed suicide. Young kid, 13 years old. It was right like mid to post pandemic.
Okay.
And
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I was fairly cool and acquainted with his coach. Obviously, my son being on the team, and he just trusted me enough to take over that particular season because we had just started the fall season. So this was like August, September. So that was really interesting to see my son experience. At the time, he was, I think, 12 going on 13. And a lot of our mutual brothers, their sons was on the team at the time as well. Mm-hmm. And we decided to come together and keep it going in honor of the young man. His name is Kingston, by the way. And so that turned into, all right, man, just as some fathers, let's keep it going. Let's keep our boys motivated. We dedicated that particular season to the young man that took his own life. And then from there, my son told me, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep that team. He wanted to keep a team.
Yeah.
And so I decided to get more responsibility and more involved. And here we are, a year and a half, almost 2 years later, man.
That's crazy.
and we have a youth basketball program. So that's kind of like how we got started.
Yeah.
And I have a heart for young people. I guess at some point we'll bring that up as well. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me to be involved with young people. But from the side of coaching, completely a novice. I mean, I'm a little better at it now than I was because I've decided to study and learn. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much how it went down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hear you about that, man. I hear that. And it's funny you said that, obviously as time goes on, you get better at it. It's kind of like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you get hit in the mouth. Everyone kind of knows what they talking about until you get into this position where you don't know what you're talking about. And then you got to learn, and you got to learn what you're talking about. And, so that's pretty cool, man. So, but speaking of which, you had, mentioned having a heart for the young people. Speak a little bit about that.
Man, as far as like youth ministry and just, my heart for young people are interesting just because I believe that God has used and has allowed me to use how I grew up, where I grew up, and some of my experiences to, that's what fuels my passion, right?
Okay.
And so with that, I've had extensive training from some solid men in the faith. As a Christianity specifically, that has, given me the tools that I need for the things that I do on and off the court and outside of what we would consider the, I guess, confines of church or ministry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for some time, man. It's probably been, 13, 14, maybe 15 years now. Whew. So I do assist my ministry. Yeah, shut up. I do assist my local ministry with the young people, and I take those same principles and ethics and faith-based ideologies to the youth sports as well.
Yeah. And for the listeners who are listening, and for those who are viewing, you may think to yourself, well, what does that have to do with sports or youth sports? Well, in this case, and just to interject, in my humble belief, I believe it has everything to do with sports. One thing that I learned, playing sports was, obviously the sports taught you how to, get along with people and discipline in those areas that, you get as an added bonus to what you get inside the home. But it was also character development as well. Right. Sure. So, especially as a preteen, teen, those ages where you start to develop and you start to get your own feelings and emotions and the world starts to make a little bit more sense. Character development was something that was instilled to us and instilled in us while we were also learning how to play the game of basketball, play the game of football. So, I think it's vitally important to understand, why, especially for you as a coach, why you have a passion for the youth, because there's no bias, right? There's 100% integrity when it comes to how you approach a team, how you approach a player. And I think it's important for people to know that, our faith shapes us and I think it would be a shame for us, especially being Christians, to allow that part to be masked or shadowed into what we do, i.e., whether it's coaching or whatever it is. So it's going to come out. If it's a part of you, it's going to come out. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. Definitely. But did you have anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Just a little piece. The basic structure, if we're talking fundamentally speaking, of all humanity is family, right?
Absolutely.
You have the man, you have the woman, and then you have the offspring. Basically, you have the head, you have the co-head or the assistant to the head, and then you have what you would put into based on those two people coming together, right? So, in the basic structure of sports, you have the head coach and you have an assistant coach. You guys go out there and you pour into. So that's why sports is so related to faith, because of that. It's a family structure. And that's it. That's all I wanted to add it. I mean, that's why, they go together and they illuminate each other as well. It's just simple, right? Quarterback, right? And you have the rest of the squad. You have coach and quarterback. And then those two are making sure that the squad is following through with whatever that concept or whatever that context is. And then, it goes from there.
Absolutely, man. That's a great way to look at it too, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you sharing that. But I did want to get into this topic, man. And I think this is something that not only do I know that you're passionate about, but I'm passionate about as well. And it's just the overall state of youth sports.
Oh,
So
let's talk about it.
so at least from my perspective, and I'm an outsider looking in. Now, I mean, you can ask anybody, and you may feel the same way, but generally, I have a pretty decent idea of what I'm watching, and I can usually pick it up pretty quick as far as being able to analyze and actually have a decent opinion about what's going on. But in your case, you're actually involved in youth sports. You're actually getting to see it not only as a coach, as someone who's actually founded a team, but as also a parent of a player who, quite frankly, is very talented, and if he keeps it up, may have an opportunity to play at another level. So I wanted to talk about the state of decay, if you will, when it comes to sports, because at least from what I've been seeing, the focus has been more so individualistic as opposed to character and team building. So I'd like to kind of get your opinion on what do you think has changed from when you played and when you were kind of going through that gauntlet, if you will, compared to what you're seeing now in youth sports?
I think, man, the major difference is, man, lack of integrity when it comes to what the sport is. I mean, that's all across the board. I think I feel more comfortable discussing specifically the sport of basketball or football. But I would probably be correct by saying it's probably everywhere in youth sports.
Okay.
There was always a magnifying of monopoly when it came to certain aspects of it. For instance, when AAU blew up, there was this, taking advantage of the kids. You would take the elite players and then you would tax the parents, but in return for taxing the parents or overcharging them for certain things, coaches and programs will make sure that those students, elite, would be placed in scenarios where they would get the most exposure and or the access or the back, the red carpet, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Then it, over time, evolution, whether it's good evolution or bad evolution, things are going to change and they're going to progress in a way. And what we've seen is, it's from my day is again, now it's not necessarily about the sport, which is a team effort. It's more or less about the individual, from the business of skills and training down to being placed on the team. Now we don't have a big traditionally. We have multifaceted, multi-purpose, multi-positional players that comprise of a team where nobody is really dependent on anybody else, which is what a team is. You have an area on a team where you specialize in for specific reasons, for certain points of the game, aspects of the game, right? If you are a 5, you are a rebounder. You are a blocker, right? If you are a 4, you progress the offense, right? So if you're not picking and rolling or picking and popping, right? If you don't have a mid-range game, then you pop out to your point guard who's controlling tempo, who is distributing, making sure everyone is involved, has the IQ and the vision and wherewithal to keep the whole team in place. Or you have a 2 guard or a shooting guard who is mainly out there and who's mainly catch and shoot, right? You had all of these positions in place to make sure the game was progressing, has now been reduced, in my humble opinion, to what can you do as an individual that makes the game tantalizing or exceptional or explosive, entertaining, versus us just saying, you know what, those 5 guys belong together on the floor for a long period of time because they worked cohesively on both ends, right? If you have a front court, if you have a back court, teams were known for that, right? You had Karl Malone, John Stockton. You had Pippen, you had Jordan, right? You had Kobe, you had Magic. At one point, you had Penny and you had Shaq. I mean, Kobe and Shaq. You had Penny and then you had Shaq, right? It was these duos or trios that honed in on what they did on the court that progressed the game. To me, now has been reduced to, oh, let me just go out there, dribble, step back, fade away, shoot 30 feet. Oh, okay, he has a skill set, but may not have the IQ.
Mm.
And as I close that point, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, right before the All-Star break, there's a young guy that played for the Lakers, rookie,
Mm-hmm.
and LeBron. They show LeBron like trying to explain something to him.
Austin Reeves,
right? Austin Reeves. LeBron was trying to explain something to Austin Reeves, and I don't know if this is true or not. It's just making the point. He was making the face like he didn't understand a thing LeBron was saying, but I'm pretty sure it was based on IQ of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the game the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just throw people out there and then you pick who you want to look at the whole time and just look at that one person. Yeah. I still like looking at the whole game.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And just to piggyback off that too, like, I'm sure it was the same, you know, with you growing up in Michigan. For me, growing up in North Carolina, predominantly a basketball state, everybody was hooping and everybody could hoop, right? So, you know, so as far as having the talent, it's like you said, that was never the dividing line, because almost everybody that was on the court was talented. It was the other parts of the game. I know for me personally, right, I got to my sophomore year and ended up playing basketball, you know, my sophomore year from my high school. And, you know, I started lifting weights and doing stuff, and my body was just like, bro, you a football player. So I made a conscious decision that although I thought I was, you know, pretty knowledgeable when it came to the game, I became typecast because I couldn't play the 1. I was too muscular. They had me playing the 5 because I could grab rebounds and jump, but I was only 6 feet. And so at that point, I knew for a fact that it was time for me to make a shift. But I felt like I had a decent IQ. Getting on the court and actually playing with those guys showed me how very little I knew about organized basketball. Right. And but it's like you said, right? It's like having the knowledge of the game and being able to apply it and allow it to make sense. It's one thing that Delvin has said last week, and I appreciate him coming on the show. He has said being able to do those things in fast motion. Yes, that's generally what separates the good from the great, and that same rule applies to basketball, right? So like I could sit down with almost any basketball player who's played for an extended period of time and ask them questions about basketball, and they'll give me legitimate answers. Can they go out and do it? That may not be the case. And I think I know for me, I started to see a little bit of the decay maybe a little under a decade ago. A decade ago, I found myself going to a lot of G League games because what we're seeing in youth sports now, we would see that's what you would see in the G League. A bunch of individual players trying to get theirs. They don't care who their teammates are. Everybody's trying to get theirs for their own. Right. But that's what the G League's for. Right. Like you go there and you just try to ball out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And which makes it a little bit more understandable in G League, because at that point you're auditioning for a job. It's almost like an interview. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you said something that I just wanted to highlight on this particular point. And you said organized basketball. And I think that's the decay. Decay is the decay is in the fact that it's no longer organized.
Man, that is true.
It's just entertainment. You see what I'm saying? If it was organized, then you would know what position you are instead of all of these hybrids. They took people and they tried to reproduce them because it made money. They tried to reproduce Jordan. They tried to reproduce Kobe. They tried to reproduce Dwayne Wade. They tried to reproduce LeBron James. You can't reproduce a phenomenon. You just accept it for what it is, appreciate it, and then don't water down the game for that. And I think that's why LeBron, I think, would have survived in any era because he is a hybrid. Yeah. Right. If he had to play one position, he would love to. But he's such an astute basketball player that he can literally not only play every position on the floor, but he can make a person look like they are playing the correct way in their position because he knows how to partner up or he knows how to gleam off a person. I heard Gilbert Arenas say this on his podcast a week or two ago about LeBron James, and I thought it was the highest compliment ever. Because of course everybody's in uproar about the Lakers. You know, obviously it's the biggest franchise. Ooh, yeah, we're looking like trash. And he was trying to the question, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but somewhere around he was being asked by a guy on his podcast, what do you think is the issue? What do you think can help them? And he was like, man, LeBron is a bona fide superstar. If his help would just do their job instead of trying to play like they think he wants them to play, then all he's going to do as a superstar, as a great basketball player, is adjust to them and make it work for the whole squad. Because that's why he's LeBron James, right? That's why people watch him. That's why people are, he's at the top of his game still in his 19th year. Yeah. Hit your shots and play your game. And then he's going to say, oh, okay, that's what he needs from me. Or, oh, okay, this is what I need to do to such and such to accommodate, or whatever the case may be. The problem is everybody's trying to play to him, and it's looking like, illegitimate, like family, right? Yeah. Like they don't belong together.
They really do look like that. For sure.
5 different, to the point, you have 5 different ethnicities, right? Who's never spent any real time together, thrown into a situation where they're supposed to help each other think, help each other go and get food, right? They in the jungle. They're supposed to help each other travel, but they come from 5 different areas of the world. You see what I'm saying?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Up and say, hey, you know what? You seem like the one that we need to go ahead and just, all right, cool. We're going to follow you. And if you're going to follow me, then this is what I say. Be who you are, and I'm going to make all of us work cohesively together.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the game. That's the organized part of the game that I think is decaying.
Yeah, yeah. And to add on to that point too, and then we'll obviously get back into the youth side of things. But I think to go back to the face that Austin Reeves had made, I think he was more so amazed by LeBron's IQ, which is a testament to LeBron, but it's also a detriment to a guy like Reeves. Well, not really detriment because he's a young rookie, but that's not the only guy who looks like that on the court. And I think that also plays to the separation. Like, you come onto a team, I expect you to be able to know certain parts of the game. You don't know them. How can I put you in the right position if you don't know what that is? And I think that's what you're starting to see with the Lakers, is that these guys who, like you had said, from youth sports all the way up until the league, they coasted on their talent. Their talent was focused. Some of these guys, you knew them before they even came to the league. They had a social media following. They had a presence. They were already celebrities. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's not really about basketball. And I actually made the case to someone recently when we were watching the All-Star game. Russell Westbrook's commercial came on during the All-Star game for his clothing brand. And I looked at him and I said, that's the reason why he came to LA. He didn't come for basketball. He came for business. Brand development. Yeah. Right. That's and that also, you don't think that's going to bleed into your game? The fact that you don't care enough about the game to actually figure out how to work best with the team that you have. You out there still looking like a monkey, and you've been playing for 10 years. You look like you don't know any basketball, bro. Like, so like I said, just to piggyback off of what you were saying, it starts from youth basketball.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to play and look how they look and be who they are. And then obviously a college or a team is not going to pass them up because they got the talent and they can put butts in seats. But when it's time to actually build a team, I can't build a team because these guys don't know what team is.
Right. And you know what? And again, still honing in on youth sports, but I have to highlight this. This is why I'm a fan of the Ball Brothers brand as basketball players.
Those my guys right there.
Yeah, dog. Man. So you got LaAngelo, you got LaMelo, and then you have Lonzo. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because their father took control of the narrative of what they were going to be. Yeah. And even though he made a sideshow that made them money, it was able to support them while he figured out ways to get them to where they wanted to be in his own way.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
No, definitely.
And so when you're talking about AAU sports, he was in control of their teams. When you talk about their high school experiences, he was in control of that. Even
that's a good point. That's a real good point.
Yes, sir. He was in control of it. Now he created the hoopla because he understood the times, but he made sure they were basketball players. They had that old school foundation, bro. They had that old school foundation, right? With a little bit of the pizzazz sprinkled on it enough to get them to where they want to go. Wow. Now you're looking at Lonzo having a little bit of repetitive injury issues, but once he gets solidified, and he was showing it in Chicago, he's a bona fide point guard.
Yeah.
Then LaMelo is a bona fide point guard. right? These guys play the game of basketball, and it's not about putting up 30 or 40 points or shining. They're trying to find you on the court, which is identified with the position they've been trained their whole lives for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you take a look at the scope of youth sports now, man, it's terrible, bro. It's terrible because number one, not only do these parents have their kids on multiple teams, that's not family. That's not commitment.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
Man,
that's not weathering the storm.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's what made a team, when you can take the wins and the losses together and still maintain that same camaraderie and that same relationship amongst your brothers. You know what I'm saying? So they got them on multiple.
You're talking good, sir.
Let's get to
talking
it, right?
Good, dog.
They got them on multiple teams, right? And then the part of their question is, who are you as a man, as a coach? Is my child safe? Will my child learn the game of basketball? The question is, all right, cool. So what's your plan for exposure?
Yikes.
So
man.
What if I don't? So as long as I have a program that can put them in front of who you think is going to help them, you know how much exposure these kids have these days? You can have all the exposure in the world, but if the game don't pick you, the game don't pick you. The exposure isn't the end all be all to whether or not you will go to another level or the epitome, right? Or the highest level, if you will, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So why not make sure everything is intact as far as integrity of the game and teaching the kid what the kid needs to know about the game? And then they go to these high schools, get popular. Now you got the social media, and now you got kids with endorsements and all this crazy stuff. Then you go to college, and you got a coach, an alpha male coach at that, though, Jay. Listen, an alpha male coach at that telling you, I got a program, and this is how you're gonna play inside of my program. Now the ego is already there. The celebrity, the drunkenness of your image is already there, and you ain't did nothing.
Yeah.
Basketball, high school basketball ain't no competition. That ain't where you know what I'm saying? That's where you're supposed to learn the game. And then we have those pick of the litters, right? That have those phenomena, but now they're trying to make them. So that's why over 10 to 15 years, training and
that's
skills
something right there, bro.
has now become big business. Now you got trainers getting endorsement deals. The people that's supposed to be part of the team and the conglomerate of people or the conglomerate of the organization that's supposed to help propel people to be the best athlete they can be. Now everybody want to be the forefront of it. Now when you go up there, you think your coach, your weight trainer, your skills trainer, you know what I'm saying? Your shoot trainer, your jumper trainer. You're thinking all of these people for pouring into you. And not that I'm saying that that's wrong. I mean, pay homage where you're supposed to pay homage to. What I'm saying is it's more about the image of the individual to become more marketable and more brand attractive than it is about becoming an actual basketball player. We missed that about Kobe. Yeah, the big business came to him. Yeah, he was able to get a classic shoe after classic shoe and all these other things that surrounded him, movies, music, all of that stuff that he did. But he kept the main thing, bro. He was a hooper, die hard. And that's what's missing in youth sports. You know, I got a parent right now that I've talked to, that I let, his son plays for our team. And he's in the crosshairs. His son is very good, still developing overall, but his jumper is magnificent. And his conversation is, I'm talking to different people, and he has a relative that's played on the collegiate level that's also giving him information and some type of guidance. And he's like, what do you think, bro? Like, they saying I should do this for exposure and I should do that. I'm like, man, if your child is good, it's going to come to him.
Yeah, it'll find them 100%.
It's going to come to them, man. Y'all are exposing y'all kids to all of this stuff, and then they don't make it. Then what? Because I'm me personally, I don't want a media darling. You know what I'm saying? So you got this Instagram, they got 1 million followers. You got this YouTube, they got 1 million followers. You got all this hype around them. You walk in the gyms and people know him by his first name and his last name. And they treating him like, royalty, the principal, and all, like everybody's treating him so grandiose. And then he don't make it. What's he gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I try to instill in my son a balance. The message is, you play basketball, you're not a basketball. right? But then you have to consider what's happening 10 to 15 years from now. And you're going to be a full-blown grown man. You want to be married? Yes. You want kids? Yes. Okay, cool. So what does that look like as it relates to responsibility and accountability to having a wife and a child? So you have to have gainful employment. You have to have the things in place to be what she and your children, whenever y'all decide to do that, you got to have all that in place, right? All right. So where's basketball in it? Is it possible? Yes, but we got to keep a healthy perspective on this. And I don't think that that's been the kids are not being allowed to do that. They're showing up to practice. We did weight training at 6 a.m. Then I'm on this other team, so we did practice at 2. Then I'm at this other this other team. So that practice was at 6, but I left there an hour early so I could come here. And now we're about to practice for 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's because the priorities shifted.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So it's like, what do you stand to gain when you are essentially giving your entire, soul, mind, body, and soul to something without balance?
Yeah.
And there's no guarantees. There was no guarantee for LeBron. There was no guarantee for KG. You know what I'm saying? There was no guarantee for Tracy McGrady. There was no guarantee. It was just skill set, talent. They were exposed to the right people. They got some opportunities. They seized the moment, and it worked for them. But even if you look at those, like, it didn't work out the same for Grant Hill that it worked out for Penny. It didn't work out the same way for Penny that it worked out for Kobe. It didn't work out the same way for Kobe as it worked out. But remember Sebastian Telfair?
Yeah.
Out of Brooklyn, New York, right?
Yeah.
High prospect. I remember seeing him all over. Didn't work out for him.
Duke who? I mean, he had a decent career. He didn't end up being a obviously a elite player, but he had a good career.
Right. In jail right now for guns and drugs.
That's crazy,
and I hate to use that as an example. I'm not trying to stereotype it, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what his situation was, but I'm saying, look at that.
Yeah.
Or let's take let's look at the other side. So we got Sebastian Telfair. Now let's look at Mateen Cleaves out of Michigan State.
Yeah.
Decent player, played for a decent amount of time, but he fizzled out. He was an undersized guard. He had a decent jumper, a little bit of an IQ, but his game didn't advance. They won a championship, so he had to go to the league. This is the politics of the game. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So when it comes down to the youth sports, and what I've experienced is that you have to, I've decided to go against the grain. You see what I'm saying? So can we do the tournament circuits and all of that stuff? Yes. Can we do, the different youth leagues? Yes, let's do that stuff. But let's do it with integrity. Let's do it with respect to what basketball is versus me promising a parent something that I can't guarantee.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can look at these young men in their face and I can say, we're going to work hard in this gym. It's going to translate to the game. And if you want to be better outside of that, then you have to do more outside of that.
Simple.
You see what I'm saying?
Just logic.
Just logic.
Yeah, man. And you had brought up something too that I wanted to kind of piggyback off of. You were talking about how exposure doesn't necessarily mean, a guarantee. Like essentially, it's not a guarantee. Do you remember? Do you remember Julian Newman?
Yeah, I sure do. Undersized guard, nice jumper.
Julian Newman.
He's a pit bull. Anybody would have wanted him on your team. Yeah.
Julian Newman versus LaMelo Ball. Julian and his family decided to focus on the exposure and create a brand for him, as opposed to actually getting him ready to play at the next level. Yeah. And LaMelo Ball and his family did the opposite. One's playing in the league, one ain't.
One's
and you can't even use the size thing. Yeah, he's 5'7", 5'8", but we got plenty of those guys in the league now, and we've had them in the past. Jalen Brunson's 5'10".
Yeah. So my only point for saying he was an undersized guard is he is the one that needed to know the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, as a basketball enthusiast, if you will, we can't use the whole, he was just undersized, that's why he didn't get a look. Gotcha. Agreeing to what you said, his game didn't develop. He became a one-trick pony. He became the guy that can dribble real fast, talk trash, and can make a bucket. But when it came to actually knowing the game, he didn't know the game, and he fizzled out. Now he focusing on whatever he focusing on, being an internet sensation, and you can still get your success or whatever from there. But initially, the game was the game, and the game was supposed to be the game for you, and
for
it
sure.
wasn't, and it wasn't.
And that's what I preach to my boys, man. Yeah. Sustainability, like you have to learn the game. Like even with my own son, when I'm imparting it to him, I say, man, you have to be a two-way player because that keeps you on the team. So even if you're not 100%. Being productive on the offensive side, if you're getting stops, oh, you're on the floor. But even on the offensive side, I know it looks good to pull up from 30 feet. It looks good to be able to do the razzle dazzle. But can you hit a 10-foot jumper? Can you hit a 12-foot jumper? Can you hit a 15-foot jumper? Can you make points from the place on the floor that is probably the most unguarded but the most difficult?
You just took the words out of my mouth. Especially in this day and age,
you got to think about stuff like that. That's
in this day and age where the floor is wide open and they begging you to be able to hit them shots.
Yes, exactly. So sustainability, you have to be able to take the game for what it is, understand what IQ is and how that is applied, and then how to benefit from it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's actually a good segue to this last point I want to talk about, and then we're gonna wrap up. You had mentioned, you were you're instilling these, these not just life lessons, but these different character traits and these different quote motives, if you will, into your son. The balance, if you will. So as a coach, as someone who understands basketball, and as a parent, as a father, how do you teach your son the difference between purposeful time, i.e., hey, if you're going to spend time doing this, you need to make it count, versus striving towards that. And which, of course, obviously striving, you're going to lose something when you strive for something, right? So there's always a sacrifice when it comes for that press, right? For that, I'm going for this and ain't nothing going to stop me type of deal. So how do you, as a father, teach your son, hey, look, yes, your time is purposeful. Like you had mentioned it, you play basketball, you play basketball, but you're not basketball, right? So you're more than just basketball. How do you find yourself instilling that in him, who's a very skilled player, right? If I say so myself, every time I've seen him, he knows the game and he's very skilled. So how do you find yourself doing that?
Well, it's all decision. And so what I mean by that is, and we talk at least once a month about it. I have to remind him that this is a life choice. And on the other side of that is making sure that I'm in support of balance. So he's only 14, specifically speaking about my son. So, and my wife helps me. She helped me with that. Just being more aware. Because, dads are like, oh, boy, you sitting there, you got to get out there. You got to do this. It's like, OK, cool. Don't lose yourself, though, because you'll get burnt out. And then that passion turn into, oh, this feels more like something I have to do versus something that I want to do. And so that's all we do. We just differentiate the difference between something that you want to do and something that you have to do. So if it's something that you want to do, then here are some key things that you're going to need to make sure that you excel and are the greatest you can be.
Yeah.
Right. But in the same token, there's a responsibility and accountability to that. So because we're your parents, we're not going to let you be as good as you are and then not nurture that, especially if you're saying you want to do this. You see what I'm saying?
That's good, man. That's good.
Then on the other end of it, hey, look, you're not a basketball. So instead of walking around, feeling like, don't miss the day where you were able to laugh and joke and talk and go run around and be goofy or play a video game here and there, whatever the case may be. But also don't allow that to absorb your time that you can be using to become better.
Man,
so there's
that's good,
always
bro.
something you can do to get yourself ready for the next phase. Hey, because even that time where you are, it is leisure. It's time for you to play your video game, whatever the case may be. Somebody's working while you're doing that. So in the spirit of competition, cool. All right, you're doing what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing. But in the spirit of competition, let that be something that fuels you to go as hard as you can go when it's your time to put the work in.
That's good, bro. That's real good, man. Man, I ain't got nothing to add to that, my brother.
Oh man, that's what's up.
Yeah, that's how you do it right there. That's awesome. And I'm at the stage right now where, you know, my son he's showing me what he's actually interested in. And so it's just cool to hear from that perspective, someone who's going through it, who's been going through it for a while, not only as someone who's a basketball enthusiast and someone who actually knows the game in and out, left, right, but you have a quote, for lack of a better term, a mini me, who has a natural ability towards it. And now and now as a parent, you're figuring out the best way to tailor and to quote, nourish that while also not overfeeding that to where that becomes the only thing, the only priority he has, man. So that's real cool, man.
Yeah, and just leave you with this key. Like, so he doesn't have social media, he doesn't have YouTube. Just now his AAU coach is building some type of profile, because now we're going to start focusing on getting some attention from key people.
Yeah.
But it's with a purpose. It's not to build him up, because he's still working on character. He's still working on integrity. He don't know no better. So, you know, why would I put him out there on the forefront to influence somebody or to have somebody to dare to look up to him?
Yeah.
So that's what you know, there is nothing. And look, if you hear his name and you decide to come to a game where he's playing, it's going to be off grassroots level. Yeah. It's going to be the traditional way. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And then when it's time to give him a little bit more leverage when it comes to the different tools that we can use today, then, you know, we'll consider those avenues.
Yeah. It reminds me of a conversation I had with my nephew, and I told you this a few days ago. I basically told him time is a currency you can't earn back.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, and he's the same age as Izzy. So, and he's also talented in basketball, but he's also not lacking, right? And so for him, it's a little bit easier, or I'll say easier, but he's not fighting the proverbial chip, because he doesn't have to use basketball as an escape from a bad reality. He has both of his parents, right? You know, matriarch, patriarch. They're instilling good habits and good discipline into him. Basketball is just something that he has a natural inclination towards. But also at the same time, he's of that age where, you know, the time that you spend, you're going to start to realize and feel you can't get it back.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
if we're going to be doing this, right, if we're going to be taking time, because it's not just time for you, it's time for me too, right? So I'm speaking from the perspective of the parent. It's time that I'm investing into this, and it's time that you're investing into this. So let's make that time purposeful. We can still, you know, maximize our time and bring the best out of you based off of what you've already shown us naturally, without making this your end all be all. But if we're going to be here, you better be here and you better be ready to work. So that's what that reminds me of, man. That's it's just crazy to hear from your perspective, because obviously I have a personal connection, not just with you and your family, but in this case, I'm talking in regards to my nephew and my brother-in-law. You know, we had a really good talk. So it's just cool to hear from your perspective, man.
Sir, yes, sir. You know, you said that time is expensive. I know we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Time is an expensive currency, is what you said?
It's a currency you can't earn back.
A currency that you can't earn back, that sparked the thought of it's the most expensive freedom we have.
That's good.
Yeah, it's the most expensive.
About to make it a t-shirt. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's dope.
It's the most expensive freedom we have, man. We spend it all the time. But if it's not properly invested, the return isn't good.
Man, that's good, bro. That's good, man. Well, again, man, that's pretty much it. Believe it or not, we've been spending for almost an hour, bro. I told myself I wasn't gonna let it happen.
It went fast.
It doesn't it go fast? Like,
yeah, man. My bad if I took too long.
That was awesome. Just like I told Delvin last week, man. You did exactly what I was wanting out of this episode, giving us a perspective and just it's a dialogue. This is a conversation that we would have with no cameras on. That's the idea.
Which is how this happened.
Exactly, right. So
Yeah.
and that's the cool thing, and I'm obviously there's a level of, you know, discipline, or there's a stage level to it because we're in front of a camera, so we want to present properly, but as close to reality as we can get. This is as close to reality far as the conversation that we would have normally that we can get. And you know, for the listeners who may be new, I want to. That's been my focus. My focus was to be able to speak from not just a logical perspective, but not to have to get outside of myself, not to have to make it about any other thing besides whatever we're talking about, and then just keep it organic. So I appreciate you coming on, because you definitely kept it organic. And I'm sure we'll have some other conversations pretty soon, man.
For sure, my man.
Cool. Well, before I let you go ahead and let them know where they can find you on Instagram or on social media, if they want to check out your page or anything that you want to promote yourself personally.
Yeah, Instagram is at JayBrian _IG. So at JayBrian _IG.
Perfect. That's great, man. Well, all right, that's it, man. Thanks again for coming on. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Just Logic. I'm James Lomax, and we will catch you on the next one.